So I'm lucky enough to be joined today by Steve Williams from the Directline Group. He's the head of EV strategy, and Nicola Richmond, head of Churchill Expert, part of the Directline Group. Hello, both.
Hi.
Hi, John.
Now then, you did the EV rally and you wanted to join that, but I don't really know why. Nicola, what made you join the EV rally this year?
So as you said, John, Churchill Experts being part of Directline Group. Directline Group as a whole has got a real strategic focus around net zero and how we can take action on climate change, not only because that's good for the planet, but also we believe that's good for business as well. So as one of the UK's leading insurers leading motor insurers, shall I say, obviously we have a real strategic focus around how do we support individuals and how do we support businesses in their transition to electrification. Churchill Expert, the business that I work for and lead, is working with businesses to really support them, not only in terms of providing fleet insurance for their electric vehicles, but also we work with a number of other businesses that are bringing new, different ways to access vehicles to the market. So, lots going on in my space, working with businesses to really help that transition. I'll hand over to Steve, who can perhaps talk about the work in the broader sense that we're doing for individual motorists as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, so as you mentioned, John, I'm head of EV strategy here at Directline Group. So the rally appealed to I guess to me and my squad for a number of reasons. One being, we've done research over the last couple of years, and quite often research you see out in the market says the same thing, which is the top sort of three reasons why consumers are challenged about getting into an EV: cost, range anxiety, charge anxiety. So we thought, well, what better way to check and prove or disprove whether charge and range anxiety are a real thing than join 50 other vehicles on a road traveling 1,200 miles around all five corners of the UK and Ireland. And there was a whole different range of vehicles. We were lucky we were in a Tesla, so we get good range, but obviously there are a lot of different vehicles and vans. We work a lot with van drivers, SMEs who have vans within their fleet. So it just felt like there was a really nice way of showcasing what EVs can do and what the charging infrastructure looks like today. And then also as part of our role, we're trying to electrify DLG. So again, we're trying to help colleagues as well as customers go on that journey. So it's a great way to bring some of those colleagues with us on the journey. And as you know, John, a few people joined us along the way to make their EV debut and try an EV for the first time, which was fantastic. And I guess finally, it was a chance to spend time with other people in organizations that are decarbonising, trying to help their customers, their colleagues go on that journey. So great to, I guess, share some of the challenges we face into, some of the good things that we've done, and also learn from some of the great people who are on the rally as well.
And what were those key learnings, Steve? Because charging, as you mentioned, is something which bothers people, and they think charging is difficult. 1,200 miles, 50 vehicles. What did we learn? What did you learn as a result of actually getting in an electric vehicle and taking it those 1,200 miles?
So I think my key takeaway, John, is probably people shouldn't be worried as much as they maybe are. So the reason I say that is if 50 vehicles, including vans and 2 lorries for the first time, if they can make it all traveling on the same route at the same time to the same charge points, if we can make that work, and obviously that's an extreme example of how people would travel and use those facilities, and none of us ran out of charge. Obviously there were a few moments where people were low, but we, through teamwork and just I guess potentially being logical around who needs charge and the etiquette around, well, you've got a van, you've got 150 mile range, I've got 300. Well, I'll go to the next charge point because I don't need it as urgently as you. So if we can do that as a collection of 50 vehicles traveling that same route at the same time, then actually I think that shows the charging infrastructure is good. It's solid, especially in Wales, England, Scotland. I think we can all say that Ireland has some way to go. They're much further away from that kind of long-term aspiration. They're right at the start of their journey. But again, I think, like, you say on the EV Cafe, and I would say to my friends, which is, it's just about planning. So if you're going to travel 200, 300 miles in a day, you are going to stop. There's no doubt about that. Everyone's got to stop. Everyone's got a bladder, John. Everyone needs to stop. So, it's just about planning, having a look. Do you need a 150 kilowatt charger? Do you need a 50 kilowatt charger? Are you going to stop for lunch? Well, it's an hour. Maybe I could use a slightly slower charger. Actually, I've got, as me and Ian found out when we got down to 3%, we need a supercharger to get us back on the road. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck behind. So I think the charging infrastructure is probably better than maybe people realize, or maybe parts of the media make out. Don't get me wrong, there are still challenges, but I think my takeaway was it's probably better than you realize. And that was highlighted for me when we woke up on Tuesday morning. We had 10% charge left, and we said, right, that's fine. We'll go to this Tesla supercharger 10 minutes away. And there was a 2-mile queue at the motorway junction. So we were like, well, okay, well, we can't do plan A. What are we going to do for plan B? So obviously straight on to the Power app, who were obviously the guys who were kindly powering the rally, and had a look at them. And I also had the Tesla app open. I was like, right, there's another Tesla supercharger other side of the motorway. So it's a little 10-minute detour. We got there with 3% charge. And I'm sure for lots of people, 3% charge has them pulling their hair out. Luckily, me and Ian don't have any hair. So we were pretty chilled out about it, to be fair, John. And we went 60% in 20 minutes. And then we're back on the road. So actually, it was totally fine. Even though we had a curve, even ball thrown in our direction, you had a quick look on the app and you could see there were multiple options within 10 minutes of us. So it wasn't a problem in the end.
And we talked about the challenges, going down to 3%. How did that make you feel? Were you nervous? Did you feel anxious? Or were you quite chilled because you had that software and you were able to plan and weren't really that bothered?
Yeah, I think for Ian and I, so obviously I drive an EV, have done for sort of 7 months now, and I've had to use charge points occasionally. I charge at home normally, but I have used charge on the road occasionally. So I was pretty relaxed. And then when I looked at the charge point availability in the local area via the software, via Power and Tesla, I was like, well, what's to be worried about? There's 20, 30 different charging options within a 10, 15 mile radius. If that happened in Northern Ireland or Southern Ireland, probably would have been a slightly different experience, because if I'd looked at the app, it probably would have said, actually, it's a lot further away than you think to the next charge point. So again, I guess we were lucky in a way that we had that situation in England, where there's a lot of infrastructure around us, whereas in Ireland, maybe it would have been a slightly different situation. There might have been a bead of sweat on my forehead in that instance, I think, John.
Did everything go well? Because, 50 vehicles, there's about 100 people, 34 teams. Did it all go swimmingly well? Or were there bits where you thought, oh, I'm not sure about this. This is tough. Or was it just a breeze?
So they were long. The first 2 days were long days. We started in Cardiff 7:30 on the Monday morning, and we got to Nottingham at just gone 9 o'clock that evening. Which is a long day, and you would think that you would be tired. But actually, because we stopped off and met different people, so we met Ginny from Electrifying to talk about the state of the UK EV and infrastructure market. We met Ben from My Energy at Heathrow. So we were stopping and talking to different people. So actually, by the time we got to Nottingham, we were chatting to Mark from Europe Car, who used to work with us at Green Flag. I didn't actually feel as tired as I thought I would, because I think just the energy of the rally keeps you going. And then the Tuesday, again, another long day, leaving the hotel at 8, getting to Edinburgh at about 9 o'clock again. But again, that was because we were dropping off, we were bringing colleagues in, they were getting to drive the car for the first time. And again, that kind of energizes you because you're bringing new people in, that brings new energy. So other than having to spend 2 days with Ian, my boss, there's pluses and minuses to that, isn't there? And I guess the biggest challenge for me was because the way things happened, I drove the last 3 days on my own. So I was driving the car around, to Belfast, around Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland on my own. But that was more than offset by the fact that everyone was such kind of rallied around me and adopted me. So the Maxis guys, Europe Car, obviously you guys on the rally team and support team, everyone kind of took me to your heart and made sure I was looked after and I wasn't on my Todd. So that was fine.
I've got a question about the people who joined you. What did they learn? Was there any great moments? Was there that realization that, oh yeah, EV is easy, or goodness, I'm frightened by this transition? Any findings that you had from those new people to electric vehicles?
Yes, we had. What was really interesting, we had two people drive concurrently. So we had Mark, who came and drove from Leeds to York, and he came away saying, right, really enjoyed it, really loved it, would get an EV. It's two barriers: cost, and then the other one was charging. As in, he lives in a flat, so how would he charge the car? Yep. Luckily, Sarah was on hand when we were charging in York to kind of dispel myth. She drives 30,000 miles a year. She lives in a flat. She's never had any problems. So that was great. Gave him an opportunity to chat to her and kind of remove one of those barriers. Obviously, there's not much I can do about the cost side, but that was really good. And then Greg, who then drove us from York up to Berwick, where he kind of jumped out. That was really interesting because Greg is part of our pricing team. He prices electric vehicles for a living. So it was fascinating to see him drive the car and then using the technology. And I'd never really sat next to someone who's driving an EV for the first time in that way and really looked at how they were driving. So yeah, that was really fascinating to see how he thought about the technology, and obviously as someone who prices vehicles by a risk, his assessment of how he drives and the risk, and everything he saw was a risk. So therefore, how the technology worked and so on. So he came away saying he's a better driver than the Tesla is. So I'll leave that with you. But that was great to get those guys in there and get their feedback and see that happening in live.
Good stuff. Thank you. Now, Nikki, how do you think the rally has helped the business achieve its sustainability aims? Because you've got those big targets and things that you want to achieve, and the practical knowledge that Steve has picked up along the way, how's that going to be used in the business to provide a better proposition, a better customer experience?
That's a really interesting question, John. I think the rally really helps from a number of angles, really. So first of all, Steve obviously mentioned around some of our colleagues who were able to come and participate in the rally. That's a really important element of this because actually, in order to get traction as a business in terms of how we can support our customers and businesses that we work with their transition to electrification, we really need to engage all of the teams across our business, get them excited about getting into an EV. And that then drives momentum, drives activity. So the fact that Steve and colleagues around the business have been able to participate in the rally and talk about that and share that experience with the wider business, I think is a great start. In terms of then, if we look at the broader activity that we're doing for customers and the businesses that we're working with, again, it's important that we walk in our customers' shoes and we actually understand some of the challenges that they've got out there as they transition to EVs. Because again, if we can understand that, we can translate that into the propositions and services that we offer. And certainly within Churchill Expert and the business that we're doing, what's really interesting is that we're now working with organisations that are bringing new motor propositions to market that are actually also being out there and are playing a really key part in encouraging people to get into an EV. So for example, we're just recently we've signed partnerships with Drive Electric to provide insurance for a salary sacrifice scheme, which again, Steve mentioned one of our colleagues who said, EVs are expensive to get into. Actually, salary sacrifice and taking advantage of that offering is really a great and more cost-effective way of getting into an EV. And similarly, we're working with companies such as Izu, who are providing electric vehicle car subscription schemes. And again, all of our research really suggests that customers really want those types of propositions, because again, whilst the technology is still evolving, it enables it means that the customer isn't having to invest in fully owning a car. They can sign up to a car subscription, use it as a way to really try out an EV, understand what the infrastructure's like, whilst that technology is still evolving. So I think, from those angles, I think the EV rally has, and the fact that we've participated in the EV rally is really helping us continue to evolve our proposition, continuing to support customers and businesses with their electrification.
And that's especially important because Churchill Expert doesn't just roll out the same old proposition to anybody. You deal very much with bespoke insurance products, motor insurance products, and create insurance products that meet the customer's needs rather than just, here's a paintbrush and we're going to paint you all the same color. So learning what those latest features are, the latest ways in which vehicles are driven, and the latest drivetrains is really key to being able to be that tailor of excellence.
Absolutely, and really, enables us to, as you say, understand those evolving needs and then reflect that within what we're offering to ensure that, what we provide is what our customers want.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the wider work that you do with fleets, what are the things that people need to consider when they're considering the transition to electric vehicles?
I think there's a number of angles there. I mean, what's really interesting in some recent research that we've done is that 78% of the people that we went out and spoke to, the fleet managers that we spoke to, said that they were expecting to fully transition their fleets by 2030, which is fantastic to hear. And what was really interesting in that research was there was a number of, drivers from their point of view. So clearly cost plays a big role in that. But as technology is evolving, I think these businesses are seeing that evolution is happening. Clearly they're also seeing that the infrastructure is getting much more solid. So again, that's supporting their transition to electrification. On the reverse, what they also said to us was that clearly supply chain is still a bit of a challenge in that space. But actually, what the fleet managers were telling us was that they were willing to be flexible in terms of their choices around vehicles to offset that. So I think as a fleet manager sort of sitting back and thinking about this, yes, they're looking for the right vehicle, according to their business needs, really. And then really making the right decisions in terms of, their own infrastructure that sits behind that as well, really.
Super. Thank you, Nikki. Steve, we talked about infrastructure and the charging infrastructure. If you had a magic wand, what improvements would you make as a result of having experienced your own journey in EV as well as the EV rally?
I think one of the key things we need to ensure, and by we, I guess the charge point operators across the piece is reliability. So making sure that when people get there, the charge points are working, but also they're delivering on the wattage that they say they will. So I think quite a few conversations in the rally WhatsApp was, I'm at 150 kilowatt, it's pushing out 70 or 90 or 50. So as a consumer, if you're going somewhere, you expect that service to deliver what it says on the tin, and we can't expect every consumer to understand necessarily off the bat. They're not going to have the time to do the research that we do, because we're in the industry in some way, to understand the difference between the kilowatt hour charges, and then actually when you get there, you're not going to get 150 all the time. It depends on how many charge the unit has delivered that day, if there's more than one car being charged at the same time. So I think reliability, I think ensuring that what's getting delivered is what you say is going to be delivered is two of the key ones. I think the availability of the charge points, and again, the BBC did a program this week talking about the challenge, and one of the biggest challenges, availability of power to continue the rollout of the charging infrastructure. We've got great news this week of GridServe, having a big funding round in order to continue their growth. You've got Osprey launching new sites, as well as a number of other of the big charge point guys. So I don't think there's any reticence or lack of willpower on the side of the private enterprises that are trying to deliver them. It comes down to the planning and availability of power. Not the National Grid don't want to be able to give that power. It's just the way the structure is right now. It's not set up for the speed of rollout we need. So I guess, reliability, the delivering what the charger is going to say, and then I guess changing the planning and the processes around getting the infrastructure in the ground probably feel like the main things that are going to make a difference, I think.
Superb. I think you're right. And that's one of the great things that Directline and Churchill bring, is that certainty. And you do exactly what you say you're going to do. And, we've worked together for some time now, and I can honestly say that you deliver. So if you have a motor insurance need, Directline Group and Churchill Expert, they're the way to go. Both of you, thank you so much. It was great to have your company, Steve, on the rally. You popped up like the shopkeeper in Mr. Ben. Wherever I went, poof, there you were.
with my merch, my Churchill merch. No, thanks, John. It was great to take part this year. As we say, we took away a lot of learnings and made some new friendships along the way, and obviously cemented some existing ones with yourself and Paul and Sarah and Sam and all the other guys and girls who are on the rally. So it was a great experience, and really enjoyed coming along for the ride.
And it genuinely is a community, Nick, isn't it? I think that is the one thing that struck me most from the EV rally, was that we all work together to try to be a success. In a lot of industries, there's this negative approach to life, and it's managing decline. We've got growth on our side. We've got opportunity, and we're busy out there realizing that opportunity.
Absolutely. That collaboration to, all work together to drive what's right for the UK and for the planet is absolutely, what a great purpose for us all to have, really.
I love that. Driving what's right, from Nicola Richmond, head of Churchill Expert, and Steve Williams, EV strategy lead for Directline Group. Both of you, thank you so much indeed for your time today.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, John.